Hi everyone. Today's episode is all about feeding your head and keeping on top of all the information available in digital marketing. Stay tuned at the end because the team talks about the way they nourish their knowledge. Okay, today we're talking about pain point 4, and if you are an advertising agency owner or if you work daily and run an advertising agency, then you know keeping up with your clients, their vertical, keeping up with the digital marketing industry in a whole is a massive, massive challenge. We struggle with it here, and we really just face one side of it. So today's pain point number 4 is really to talk about how we feed our head here to make sure that we're knowledgeable enough on this side to help you on that side. And we've got a great panel here today that are going to really take this discussion to the next level.
All right, let's get started really with talking about how do we feed our head, right? What are some of the blogs, the articles, the podcasts that we listen to really keep up with the ever-changing, fast-paced world of the digital space?
Yeah. Can I jump in on that one? The thing that is just so relevant to me is age. This is not an age thing. You can feed your head at whatever age. I think it was 53 when we started this, a little older than that today. And it's subscribing to those daily blogs, those daily vlogs, the having those people every day that you can depend on to feed your head, so important in this space. And we wanted to delve into a little bit more about what specifically those things are, but you have to start out with a mindset that to grow in this space is to keep abreast of as much as you can that's going on.
Rob, if you could start off, just tell us a little bit about how you go through the process, whether it's you wake up in the morning, I know you put a podcast on, right?
Wake up in the morning, first thing I do is I put on a podcast. It's typically the Gary Vee podcast that I'm listening to. I think it's a good high energy way to start the day. I'm a little biased. Cut to Gary Vee footage. But I think that he's just a super high energy way, a good way to start the day. I think that he provides really great insight on users' attention, where they're at, and the kind of front end user experience. I also like to nerd out on the back end, but I like to start the day and use that time that might be wasted elsewhere from getting ready, be in the shower, the commute. I like to take that time and spend that feeding my head. So by the time I get into work, the brain juice is already flowing, and it's just a good way to kind of start the day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. I think the best thing an agency can do is set themselves up with as much information as possible as they can. An agency doing their due diligence of keeping up with industry news is super important, because then that way their clients feel confident in them, and then they can go back and fully understand what is going on within that industry. But just the convenience of, subscribing to emails, subscribing to newsletters, just visiting websites and jumping on any type of webinar that's going to benefit them, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, so I really take two approaches. The first one is, keeping up with the news in the industry, going to Marketing Land, Local Service Insider. I always dedicate, about an hour a day to make sure that I'm going through and I'm making sure that I'm covering any new industry trends, whatever. And then the other side of it as well, and I wouldn't say I dedicate a specific time to that, but it's not necessarily just keeping up with industry trends. It's looking at what other people are doing. Moz is a great example. And some of the smaller contributors like Measure School on YouTube, and going in there and seeing how they're doing things differently in their platforms and how they're using tools differently, because that is helping to not only keep me up to date with industry trends, but helping me to think differently about the way that I market, basically.
I think there's a ton of unintended consequences from thinking differently and viewing all this different content as well. So if you are seeing the more Google-based back-end data nerd aspect, but you're also viewing the front end, you're inherently learning how to present some complicated stuff that's going on easily for client consumption. So no one wants to be the sales rep that walks in and tries to sound smarter than the client. They don't understand what they're buying. They might buy it because it sounds smart, and 2 months later they don't see results, and the client ends up churning. Being able to make your client understand what it is that they're purchased, I think, is important. I think that viewing a lot of content that takes complex things, makes it easy to digest, just helps us all kind of present that.
Sorry, Tim, no, go on.
There's almost that high level kind of macro view that you talked about with Gary Vee, and often a Neil Patel will get a little bit more granular for SEO. Mike brings up the paid search, gurus. I think from an agency standpoint, particularly from an agency account executive standpoint, you have to have the macro down. You have to understand how things work together to be able to understand how to recommend the best strategies and solutions to your client. And digging in, Mike, at your level is maybe a little bit more than an agency account executive would need to do. But I think that macro is what we've got to cover first, and understanding how everything relates and how things work together. And then, boy, if you've got the time to understand more about each of the individual products, OTT and programmatic targeting, and certainly paid search. Makes all the sense in the world to dig deeper then, I think.
I think that's a fair point, and it's going back to what we've spoken about in previous pain point videos, where it's, if you have the knowledge of like how to, what's coming up, what other platform, what platform opportunities there are, that's presenting potentially an opportunity to your client.
Yeah. Mike, you bring up a good point, and it's really a trend that we've had across the entire series, innovation. You're feeding your head, you're learning new things about whether it be Google's platform, Facebook, our DSPs, whatever it may be. But having the time to learn it, put it into action, test it out, that takes a lot of time.
It does.
And takes away time from your agency from going out and selling and increasing revenue and all the different components that go into running an agency. So having the ability to learn, feed your head and learn, put it into play, and then really drive results from it is going to be very time consuming from an agency standpoint. And if you're really focused on the client, all the changes in the industry, and you're focused there, you're probably going to be exposed to multiple pain points that we're talking about in this series.
There's other pain points that are
exactly if you're focused solely there. So
I think it's fascinating because so many of the agencies that we talk to are kind of morphing themselves from what we would call or think of as traditional agencies to more digital oriented agencies. And so that's a transition in and of itself. I mean, back in the day, and which I can clearly speak to, a television commercial was a television commercial. Powerful as it was, that's what it was. A radio commercial, the same. A newspaper ad, the exact same. And it didn't take a lot. There weren't a lot of moving parts with that. Today, there's just a lot of moving parts. Like Whitney, with what you do in programmatic, and particularly programmatic video, all the different aspects of that now, and reaching people and targeting people in different ways through different video channels. I don't know how you keep up.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefits of working with, and we'll get into this at a later point, but taking advantage of your digital partnerships and their knowledge in that space. But there's huge benefits in fully understanding the products that you're buying, and that's where your agency or we will help you out as far as leading you in the right direction. But just understanding how many offerings there are even within the video space, whether it's over-the-top television or pre-roll video or YouTube, and then even social video. There's different purposes and benefits to running specific products for your vertical, and so understanding that this is your table of options and understanding why and when certain products should be used, I think is super beneficial. And like I said, we'll discuss later on in this video the benefits of a digital partnership, but that is kind of where agencies should put their focus on it, like you said, the macro level of those.
I think feeding your own head at the macro level, and then having that trusted partnership that they've got the micro level, that that they're going to help guide you in that right direction. So I just got two examples that I want to bring up from that. So on the macro level, we've had cases where you can tell, traditional sellers have maybe heard a buzzword but don't fully understand it. So we have an order submitted I want to run geofencing for this campaign. And it's a relatively niche campaign, and they're like, let's geofence the local mall. And the thinking there is that's where the eyeballs are, so let's put a fence around that. Digital is one-to-one, so you want to put a fence around a highly targeted area, not just the highest traffic area. And it's someone that heard a buzzword, took in kind of an older mindset, and tried to bridge the gap, and it would result in a very unsuccessful campaign because you're essentially just you might as well just go into the mall and scream if you're gonna try and geofence a mall.
I don't recommend we do that or anybody else, but that's the same thing.
And then on the micro level, having that trusted partnership, because not only from the product suite, but within the product suite, it's constantly changing. So just keeping up with OTT in general could be a full-time job. To see OTT on Hulu, OTT on Pluto, with Peacock launching, and there's different ad units. How do I know the viability of a pause ad versus a post-roll versus a pre-roll that's going to that? And is that something that I should be exploring now, or is that something that we test the waters with, wait and see? That's going to be very hard for an agency owner, I think, to try and keep up with. You just have to have a trusted partnership and be like, I read this, my clients are in it, I got the question. Are we all in? Or are we just kind of waiting to see, is this the next big thing, or is this just the next shiny new object?
Yeah.
Part of the just to flip it 180 degrees, part of the danger is that people wind up chasing headlines.
Yes.
And what we do is chase results. And staying on top of things allows us to know what we need to do on your client's behalf to produce those results.
Working with accounts and having those conversations where the end client is usually reading the headlines and seeing these buzzwords and then coming to us and saying, hey, why are we not offering virtual reality or augmented reality?
Right.
There's probably 2%, however much percent of us actually are using virtual reality in a practical sense. Mm-hmm. What in the world would we actually do to drive results in the virtual reality game right this second?
Right.
And I think playing that fine line of being that trusted partner and telling them no at times, while you're still continuing to feed your head and knowing what's coming down the track. And I know we talked a little bit about that the other day, and I would love for you to expand upon that.
I think it's so important to have a certain percentage of your time focused on innovation and focused on kind of what's coming up next and what's forward, but that can't be the focus all the time, for local agencies. One example that just pops up is, I know that in 16 and 17, Snapchat was the buzz, and we had people asking me like, oh, my clients, they need to be on Snapchat. Like, all right, you're running a $1,000 a month campaign, and the minimum entry point for Snapchat is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not even a possibility for Joe's Pizza Shop to be considering this. So you really have to be, keep in the loop, know when that does become viable, but the focus should be on, if I'm Joe's Pizza Shop, I've got my, my video ads, my search ads, my programmatic ads, my social ads that are really, really going to work well. So let's focus on maximizing those opportunities before we worry too much about a six-figure entry point into Snapchat.
Yeah, so basically, although it is great to innovate, focusing on the products that are tried and tested, that we know work, it is probably better to, get 10%, 20% more out of, Facebook and Google by managing your partnership than it is on focusing on, Snapchat for a local pizzeria, for example. So
it's almost like innovation lets us know what's possible.
Exactly.
What we want to deliver to you is what's probable.
Okay.
And right, that's what results are all about.
Yep.
So it's the balance of innovation and execution.
Yeah.
Is what
I
it
think,
comes down to.
one of the most important things, on behalf of your client and, helping your, staying ahead and helping your clients is really squeezing the relationship that you have with your vendors. So in our example, we're Google Premier Partners, and we don't take that for granted. We're regularly on phone calls with Google. We're getting data from Google. We're, accessing beta programs with Google because, everyone's a Premier Partner, but it's how you use that partnership and that access to really drive, your clients forward and really, present them with the most opportunities. That's what we do. And I think that, you basically, the reason that we do that is we owe a duty to our clients to present them with the best opportunity that we can.
Right. I mean, I think it's important to stay on top of buzzwords and everything within the social realm. But what it comes down to is asking those questions to your digital partners because they're ultimately the experts. So we don't expect every agency to be an expert in every product and every feature, understand every metric that we can track on our end. That's where it's important for the agency to understand the macro level and then come to us or whoever their partner is and ask them the right questions to dig in deeper to fully understand what their offering is to their client.
I think that's where it's our responsibility to make sure that I know you had mentioned kind of get the most out of the partnership.
Yep.
In order to get the most out of the partnership and to be able to provide that value that you're talking about, you can't just take your partner's word for it. So we've seen so many times where we're working with these names, like you're working with Google, you're working with Facebook, and so much of the information that they give is amazing, but some of that is just not applicable, or we need to explain better. So having the confidence and the expertise to be able to kind of not call your partner out, but make sure that you're getting the right value from them is so important, because if we're just regurgitating what our partners say to us, then what kind of value are we bringing? We have to make sure that we fully understand it, that it fully makes sense for our business, and that when we repackage it, we're providing that value to you.
I think with partnership, as you've said, especially with these, companies like Google and Facebook, it's after a while it can quickly become stale. Like Google will, if you're not on top of it, they will let it go stale, and that's why it's important to be, constantly asking questions. What's new to me? What can you guys do to me? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are paying to be on those platforms, so they should be doing their absolute level best to, offer our clients the best service that they can.
And when you were talking, Rob, about the relationship with the platforms are businesses. The businesses want to drive the best business for them. That doesn't mean they're not well intended. It just means that they're for-profit institutions. And all of those platforms are auctions. And the more we know about the platform, the better auction bidding we can create on behalf of our client. And I think that becomes so important. That's where getting granular and understanding the auction is just so important.
And that's not something that even needs to be client-facing. That's just what makes you kind of the expert in the industry. So if you shouldn't kind of be talking to your clients on a local level about the difference between a first price and second price auction in the programmatic space now. Everyone knows that paid search is second price, but I don't know that everyone knows that programmatic has almost entirely shifted to first price auctions, which changes the game. If the rules of the auction change, you shouldn't have the same strategy going in.
Right.
So by us really trying to get ahead and testing and having the data and knowing how that's working is where we're able to kind of take the information out there and turn it into a real world application, which I think is so important.
It is so important because the more we know, the more we can educate our clients. And when we talk about an auction, inevitably coming up with a lower, say, CPM rate, it's a race to the bottom. And so we want to make sure that our clients get the best value for the dollars they spend and not just chase what could be economy or commodity driven kind of decisions.
And I think another part of that is trusting your digital partner, because ultimately they know the right strategy for your client. I think everybody's had partners in the past where they're so stuck in their ways and they only want to see, click-through rate, a high click-through rate or whatnot. They only want to run display. I think, working with the right digital partner, they'll be able to provide feedback about what products you should be running, what strategies you should be running, and ultimately what the most important metrics are for tracking those specific products. So, back to the video example, a lot of people just go straight to completion rate or just go straight to CTR, but they don't understand the full aspects of what you can track for video. And viewability is one of those metrics that kind of falls off the rails. So just understanding what's capable for each product and asking those questions, going back to asking those questions to your digital partner is super beneficial and important.
So to bring this full circle now, we talked about subscribing to those things, which we'll show you here at the end, on a daily basis for the macro to kind of feed your head. But then the bottom up is us helping to train our agencies on how things work well enough so that they can explain not only to their clients, but understand what we're doing, so we're truly partners in trying to produce results. And so it's not an easy job. It is all based around communication. And so feeding your head is a great thing. Don't chase the headlines. Listen to your partners. Trust is earned. If you have a trusted partner, you're in a great position. So to me, it seems like there's so much knowledge out there. Make sure you're constantly putting yourself in front of it. Make sure you find a partner you can trust. Make sure that partner is working on your and your client's best interest. And it sounds like a pretty good circle.
I like the big brand perspective of the CMO podcast.
I stay up to date on marketing trends through LinkedIn, through their blogs, their newsletters, and then their marketing courses.
One of the companies that I like to read up on is Moz. They have unbelievable content no matter what level of SEO you're at.
They say it's a bad thing to look at your phone first thing in the morning, but that's what I do. So I get up and I go into Google Discover, and that's where I get a roundup of all of the content that is coming from the internet.
Since we build and host a lot of websites on WordPress, I like to stay up to date with WordPress. Their blogs, their news releases, see what's upcoming. And then Adweek. Adweek's just a great place to see what's going on in the digital landscape.
My favorite podcast would be appropriately named the Digital Marketing Podcast. They cover topics from SEO technology to social platforms to process-based platforms.
I like to feed my head every morning with the latest technology things. So I read blogs from WP Engine, Flywheel, Elegant Themes, and I'm always checking out Morton Rand Hendrickson's latest courses on LinkedIn Learning.
I start every day reading eMarketer. It's a great way to keep up with trends in the industry. They provide great data-backed information.
Honestly, Reddit. So there's programmatic subreddits, there's ad-up subreddits, and not only do you get to interact with other people and solve some problems, but they're always posting up-to-date articles so you can stay up to date with the most recent and breaking marketing news.
Mine is Gary Vee. I start the morning with the Gary Vee podcast, and I consume a decent amount of information on LinkedIn, so much so that we actually had Gary Vee come to visit us here at Conduit. He spent a good couple of hours here with us talking about the agency, talking about the state of digital marketing. It was fascinating, and his stuff always kind of makes me think. So it's Gary Vee for me.